Hello dear friends, Barbara O'Neill here. In this video, we'll explore how you may be able to reduce your risk of cancer and the steps you can take to protect your health. In the end of this video, my friends share recipes for these 7 foods. If you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe. Your support allows me to continue helping others. Thank you. My trusted friends, Dr. Owen and Dr. Linda are joining me in today's presentation to add depth and insight to the discussion. I hope you will enjoy it.
Barbara O'Neill, she's an Australian health teacher, and she talks about foods that can potentially kill cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, 7 of them to be exact.
Okay.
So I'm sure you're all as curious as I am to see if these claims actually hold up scientifically.
Yeah, it is a pretty bold claim, and it's good to be skeptical, I guess.
For sure.
But there is a lot we can learn, I think, from exploring the connections between our diet and our overall health,
Absolutely.
Including the risk of developing diseases like cancer.
Yeah, so let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
O'Neill starts off by describing the perfect environment for cancer cells to thrive.
Okay.
And she says that they love acidic, low-oxygen environments with plenty of sugar around.
Cancer loves acid. Cancer also loves no oxygen. So knowing those things, it makes a lot of sense to alkalize the tissues. The other thing cancer loves is sugar.
Interesting. So what's fascinating there is that she's kind of touching on the way that cancer cells fuel their growth.
Okay.
Unlike normal cells, they rely really heavily on a process called glycolysis, and it's less efficient, and it creates lactic acid as a byproduct, which increases acidity around the tumor.
So does that mean that cutting out sugar entirely could, starve cancer?
Well, that's where it gets a little more complex.
Okay.
While it is true that cancer cells do use more glucose than normal cells,
Right.
it's not as simple as eliminating sugar equals eliminating cancer.
Right.
It's more about the bigger picture and how our diet influences our internal environment and whether that supports or hinders disease development.
Okay, so it's more nuanced than sugar just feeds cancer.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, so O'Neill then dives into the importance of pH balance.
Okay.
Specifically that our blood should ideally be slightly alkaline between 7.35 and 7.45.
Yeah.
Can you explain why that balance is so crucial?
Yeah, our bodies are incredibly intricate systems.
Yeah.
And maintaining this slightly alkaline pH is essential for everything to run smoothly.
Wow.
It affects how well our immune system can fight off invaders,
Okay.
how efficiently our enzymes work, and even the health of individual cells.
It's like our bodies are walking a tightrope trying to keep everything in perfect harmony.
Yeah, pretty much.
And according to O'Neill, our diet plays a big role in maintaining this balance.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so she then unveils her list of 7 food groups that can supposedly help protect against cancer.
Uh-huh.
I get this. The first one is lemons. I
Oh.
was pretty surprised by that. Aren't lemons acidic?
They are in their natural state.
Right.
But what's really interesting is that the minerals in lemons actually have an alkalizing effect on the body once they're metabolized.
So even though a lemon might taste tart and acidic, our bodies can actually use it to create a more alkaline environment.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It is pretty remarkable how our bodies can process foods in ways that we might not expect.
Right.
But of course, the question is, how much impact does a single lemon have on our overall pH?
Right.
And that's where things get a bit more complicated.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next food group on O'Neill's list, dark green leafy vegetables.
No surprises. Those are always touted as health superstars.
And for good reason, they're loaded with antioxidants,
Yeah.
which act like tiny warriors fighting off damage caused by free radicals,
Uh-huh.
which are unstable molecules that can wreak havoc on our cells.
Okay.
And on top of that, leafy greens are a great source of fiber, which is key for a healthy gut.
Right.
And it can contribute to a more balanced pH as well.
So it sounds like we're 2 for 2 on O'Neill's list so far.
So far, so good.
But then she gets to vegetables like tomatoes,
Mm-hmm.
bell peppers, eggplant, potatoes, and things get a little fuzzy.
Yeah, she acknowledges that those can have either an alkalizing or acidic effect,
Right.
depending on individual body chemistry, and even things like inflammation.
She specifically points out that the nightshade family, which includes those tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant, can be tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Some people thrive on them. Others have adverse reactions.
Yeah.
She even warns that if you're dealing with inflammation, nightshades might make things worse.
Yeah, that's an important reminder that nutrition is not one size fits all. What works for one person may not work for another.
Totally.
And it's crucial to pay attention to your own body's signals.
But she does mention this fascinating fact about tomatoes and olive oil.
Okay.
Apparently, cooking them together releases a powerful antioxidant called lycopene, which has been linked to prostate health.
Lycopene is a type of carotenoid.
Okay,
And like other antioxidants, it protects our cells from damage.
gotcha.
And it's especially concentrated in tomatoes.
Huh.
And combining them with healthy fats like olive oil actually helps our bodies absorb more of it.
So even if some folks need to be cautious with nightshades, there's still a lot of good they can offer,
For sure.
depending on preparation and individual responses.
Exactly.
And this is already getting so complex.
I know, right?
What's the next food group we're diving into?
Legumes.
Okay.
But just like those veggies, there are some nuances here.
Okay.
Some legumes are considered alkalizing, others not so much.
Okay.
Oneill explains that it comes down to their mineral content and protein levels.
Specifically, she mentions lima beans, lentils, and soy on the alkaline side.
Right.
But then goes on to say that legumes with higher levels of acidic minerals like phosphorus and sulfur, or those high in protein, can tip the scales towards being more acid-forming.
Exactly. Understanding the specific composition of each food is key.
Gotcha.
For example, lentils and chickpeas are generally more on the alkaline side, while soybeans and peanuts can be slightly more acidic.
Once again, it seems like balance and looking at the overall nutrient composition are crucial.
Absolutely.
Okay, what about grains? Where do they fit in?
Oneill is a big fan of certain grains, like millet amaranth, spelt kamut, rice, and oats.
Huh.
She even shared a story about sneaking amaranth into her grandson's porridge.
She seems to have a soft spot for amaranth.
She does.
She mentioned it was a staple for the Aztecs.
Yeah.
What makes these particular grains stand out nutritionally?
Well, they're packed with vitamins, minerals, and fiber.
Oh, okay.
And some like millet amaranth, spelt, and kamut are also gluten-free. That's a big factor for people who are avoiding gluten for various reasons.
Yeah.
And it's definitely contributed to their growing popularity.
Interesting. Okay, up next on the list is food group number 6, nuts and seeds.
Okay.
Oneill claims almonds, Brazil nuts, and all seeds have an alkalizing effect.
And there's a lot of truth to that.
Okay.
Many nuts and seeds are considered alkaline forming because they're rich in minerals like magnesium, calcium, and potassium.
Uh-huh.
And these can help neutralize acids in the body.
I've definitely noticed a surge in popularity for seed-based foods lately.
Yeah.
Chia seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, they're everywhere.
And for good reason, they're nutritional powerhouses.
Yeah.
Packed with healthy fats, protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals.
Wow.
But of course, moderation is key.
Right.
Especially with nuts and seeds, as they can be calorie dense. Oneill raises the concern that fruit can potentially fuel yeast overgrowth in some individuals, which could contribute to acidity.
She explains that the sugar in fruit can feed the yeast.
Right.
And as it grows, it releases acidic byproducts.
Exactly.
It's like the yeast is creating its own little acidic party in our bodies.
That's a great way to put it.
So while fruit is generally considered healthy, it's important to be aware of this potential impact.
Yeah,
Especially for people prone to yeast overgrowth.
absolutely.
This is all fascinating, but I have to admit, it's starting to feel a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Each food group seems to have its own set of complexities and potential downsides.
Right.
What are we supposed to actually eat?
I understand it can feel daunting to try and decipher all this information and put it into practice.
Yeah.
That's where Oneill's 80-20 rule comes in.
We need to be consuming 20% acid-forming foods and 80%, 70 to 80% alkaline-forming foods. And I'm sure you're not surprised to hear me say that the 20% should come from this section here.
Aiming for a diet that's roughly 80% alkaline-forming foods and 20% acid-forming.
Okay.
Now, before you start meticulously calculating the pH of every bite,
Right.
it's important to remember that this is a guideline, not a rigid rule.
So we don't need to become pH fanatics constantly testing our food.
Not at all. It's more about shifting our overall dietary patterns towards a more plant-centric approach.
Okay.
Think lots of vegetables, fruits, keeping in mind our discussion about yeast,
Yeah.
legumes, and whole grains. These naturally tend to be more alkalizing.
That sounds much more manageable than carrying around a pH meter.
Right.
So if we're aiming for more plants, what should we be cutting back on?
Good.
What are the main culprits on the acid-forming side?
The usual suspects: highly processed foods,
Okay.
refined sugars.
Hmm.
Those sugary drinks we all know aren't doing us any favors.
Right.
Excessive red meat and unhealthy fats.
Okay.
It's not about eliminating these completely, but rather being mindful of their proportion in our diet.
So it's all about balance, just like we've been talking about.
Exactly.
It's not about demonizing certain foods, but understanding their impact and making informed choices. I love that it takes the pressure off trying to be perfect.
Yeah,
And instead encourages us to make gradual, sustainable changes that fit into our lives.
exactly. And those changes can be incredibly powerful.
Okay, so we've discussed the general principles of a balanced diet
Right.
and the importance of listening to our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still curious about those 7 food groups that Oneill highlighted.
Yeah.
What are some practical tips and maybe even delicious ideas for incorporating them into our meals?
Absolutely. Let's revisit each group and explore some ways to bring them to life in your kitchen, starting with those surprising stars of the show, lemons.
I'm already brainstorming all the ways I can add more lemon to my diet.
Aside from the classic move of squeezing lemon juice into your water,
Right.
which is a refreshing and simple way to enjoy its benefits.
Okay.
There are so many creative culinary possibilities.
Ooh, give me some examples.
Think lemon zest brightening up salad dressings,
Okay.
marinades for fish or chicken bursting with flavor,
Yeah.
even a touch of lemon in baked goods for that perfect standalizing.
And it's a great way to reduce your salt intake.
Oh, yeah.
A squeeze of lemon juice can really enhance the natural flavors of food without needing to rely on as much salt.
Exactly. Now let's turn our attention to those dark leafy greens. We know they're good for us, but sometimes it can be a challenge to get enough of them in our diet.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
I love salads.
Yeah.
But I tend to get stuck in a rut with the same old lettuce and spinach.
I understand, but there's a whole world of leafy greens out there just waiting to be explored.
Right.
Think beyond the usual suspects and experiment with kale,
Uh-huh.
collards, Swiss chard, mustard greens, even dandelion greens.
Wait, dandelion greens, you can eat those.
Absolutely. They have a slightly bitter, peppery flavor that's quite delicious.
Hmm.
You can sauté them, add them to soups, or even toss them into smoothies for a nutritional boost.
Okay, you've officially piqued my curiosity. I'm going to have to track those down.
All right.
What about those tricky nightshades? Any tips for navigating those?
Remember, it's all about individual tolerance.
Right.
If you're unsure how your body reacts to nightshades,
Great.
start by introducing them gradually and pay close attention to how you feel.
And Oneill mentioned that cooking tomatoes with olive oil can enhance their nutritional value.
Right, that's a classic combination for a reason.
Yeah.
Think delicious tomato sauces,
Okay.
roasted vegetables bursting with flavor, or even a simple caprese salad with fresh tomatoes, mozzarella, and basil drizzled with olive oil.
Now you're making me hungry. What about legumes?
All right.
I love lentils and chickpeas,
Yeah.
but I'm not as familiar with some of the other options.
Legumes are incredibly versatile and can be incorporated into so many dishes.
Right.
Add them to hearty soups and stews,
Uh-huh.
sprinkle them on salads,
Right.
or even make veggie burgers or flavorful dips with them.
She mentioned lima beans being alkaline forming. I haven't had those since I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
Any suggestions for those?
Lima beans have a lovely creamy texture and can be a delicious addition to salads,
Okay.
soups, or even mashed as a side dish.
Ah,
They can also be a fun addition to a grain bowl, adding protein and texture.
okay. Lima beans are going on my shopping list.
Mm.
What about those ancient grains that Oneill was so enthusiastic about?
Millet, amaranth, quinoa. These grains are not only nutritious, but also incredibly delicious and versatile.
Okay.
You can use them as a base for breakfast bowls,
Uh-huh.
salads, or even stuff vegetables with them for a hearty and flavorful meal.
I've made quinoa salad before, but I haven't ventured into the world of millet or amaranth yet. Any tips for those?
Millet has a slightly sweet, nutty flavor and cooks up similar to rice.
Okay.
It's great as a side dish or as a base for grain bowls topped with your favorite veggies and protein.
Gotcha.
Amaranth has a slightly earthy flavor and cooks up into a porridge-like consistency.
Hmm.
It's delicious as a breakfast porridge topped with fruit and nuts,
Okay.
or as a binding agent in veggie burgers.
You're a walking encyclopedia of food knowledge.
Oh, stop it.
Okay, last but not least, nuts and seeds. What are some creative ways to incorporate those into our meals?
Nuts and seeds are fantastic for adding texture, flavor, and nutrients to dishes.
Okay.
You can sprinkle them on salads, yogurt or oatmeal,
Yeah.
add them to trail mixes for a healthy snack,
Uh,
or even make your own nut butters.
I love adding a handful of almonds or walnuts to my yogurt in the morning.
Oh, that's great.
It's a great way to get some healthy fats and protein to start the day.
And don't forget about seed butters. They're becoming increasingly popular as an alternative to nut butters.
I've seen sunflower seed butter and tahini, which is made from sesame seeds.
Right.
Are there others?
Yes, you can find pumpkin seed butter, hemp seed butter, even watermelon seed butter.
Wow.
They're all delicious and offer a slightly different nutritional profile, so you can experiment and find your favorites.
Wow. I had no idea. There were so many options.
The world of food is full of endless possibilities.
We have one more important topic to address: fruit.
Yes.
Oneill raised some concerns about its potential to feed yeast overgrowth.
Right. We'll explore the signs of yeast overgrowth, its potential connection to diet, and strategies for enjoying fruit in a way that supports overall health.
Let's unpack this whole idea about fruit potentially feeding yeast overgrowth.
Yes. This is where things get particularly interesting.
Yeah.
As we discussed earlier, fruit, while packed with nutrients,
Right.
also contains sugar, which can be a double-edged sword.
It's like fruit is this healthy hero with a potentially mischievous side.
Right.
What are some signs that someone might have a yeast overgrowth
Okay.
so they can be on the lookout for this mischievous side of fruit?
Well, there's actually a wide range of potential symptoms,
Right.
and some can be quite subtle.
Okay.
Digestive issues like bloating,
Oh.
gas, and constipation are pretty common. Some people experience skin problems like
Mhm.
rashes or itching,
Oh.
while others might just feel fatigued or have trouble concentrating.
So it can manifest in a lot of different ways, not just digestive problems.
Exactly.
What if someone suspects they might have a yeast overgrowth? What's the best course of action?
It's always wise to consult with a healthcare professional for proper diagnosis and guidance.
Okay.
They can determine if yeast overgrowth is truly an issue
Yeah.
and recommend the most appropriate approach.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's say someone has been diagnosed with yeast overgrowth.
Okay.
Are there specific dietary recommendations that might help manage it?
Often, healthcare professionals will suggest reducing the intake of foods that can feed yeast.
Right.
That includes things like sugary drinks, processed foods, and yes, even fruit.
But we've been talking about how nutritious fruit is.
Right.
It seems almost counterintuitive to cut it out.
I understand it's not necessarily about eliminating fruit entirely, but
Yep.
rather being mindful of the types and amounts consumed.
So are some fruits better choices than others when it comes to their potential impact on yeast?
Generally, fruits that are lower in sugar and higher in fiber are considered better options for those dealing with yeast overgrowth.
Okay.
Berries, for example, tend to be lower in sugar compared to some other fruits like bananas or grapes.
And why is fiber so important in this context?
Fiber is like a traffic controller in our digestive system.
Okay.
It helps slow down the absorption of sugar into the bloodstream,
Right.
which can help prevent those sugar spikes that might fuel yeast growth.
So it's not just about the total sugar content, but also how quickly that sugar is absorbed and used by the body.
Exactly. And there are other strategies that can be helpful as well.
Like what?
Pairing fruit with protein or fat can also help slow down sugar absorption.
Okay.
For example, having a handful of berries with a dollop of yogurt or a few nuts can make a big difference.
That sounds delicious.
Mhm.
And it's a simple tweak to make.
Right.
It's amazing how these small changes can have such a big impact.
Absolutely. It's all about finding ways to enjoy fruit in a way that supports overall health.